For my presentation, I will be talking about tribal issues and emergency management. And my name is Lauren Coleman. So emergency management on tribal lands. Tribal governments work in rural areas where they're the main legal authority. And so they are the main responders in emergencies for both tribal communities as well as people living in the rural community around that area. And so they are affected by both natural disasters that occur in their area as well as those that occur outside of their area and have effects on their reservation, which can include oil spills, floods, things of that nature. The National Congress of American Indians advocates for the sovereign rights of tribal nations to seek and receive assistance when their nation's capacity to deal with an emergency has been overwhelmed. This theme of sovereign or respect for sovereign rights of tribal nations is something that I saw recurring in my research. A lot of organizations headed by Native Americans think that this issue of sovereign rights is very important, which is a balancing act with sovereign rights as well as federal funding, assistance, and aid. So the Robert T. Stafford Disaster Relief and Emergency Act of 2013 provided tribal nations with a pass to request presidential emergency and major disaster declarations to receive aid in response to disaster. But following that 2013 act, tribal nations still had roadblocks when they attempted to declare disasters. And so in 2019, the NCAI passed a resolution calling on FEMA to consult tribal nations and initiate a formal system for those declarations. The NCAI also advocates for increased federal funding to attain basic capacities for homeland security and emergency management in tribal governments, which would have a return of investment of 6 to 1, so $6 to every $1 of investment, which is a really cool investment ratio. So the National Tribal Emergency Management Council is another organization made up of tribal emergency managers, leaders, and communities, where they are able to come together to share information, best practices, and discuss public safety and other issues that are shared by many tribes. They also on their website promote sovereign immunity, which to them means building infrastructure and internal capacity to respond to disasters. And so this is again where I saw the sovereign immunity to be an important theme. The Bureau of Indian Affairs have an emergency management section that work on policy development and program management of Bureau activity. So this is a federal bureau concerning disaster preparedness, planning, response, and recovery on tribal lands. They can coordinate with federally recognized tribes, agencies, state and local jurisdictions to enhance preparedness and resilience. And they can provide support, incident coordination, and liaison with Bureau resources for disasters on tribal lands. And they also on their website recognize tribal sovereignty. Then here's a list of resources that are important for tribes to know about. The Red Guide to Recovery, Is Your Tribe Ready? And Tribal Disaster Recovery Manager Responsibilities, which are just short introductions to disaster response for tribal communities. So yeah, this is my, I'm excited to hear your questions.